Hi and welcome to this week's track guide. This time we'll be showing you the Virginia International Raceway in the BMW GTP car. So your run to the start-finish line is a pretty straightforward one. It is one continuous series of right-hand kinks, but all in all it's pretty easily flat out obviously, so it's more or less a straight line, but it's just a series of right-hand kinks in it, so try your best to minimize distance all the way to the start-finish line. And you'll be going over the start-finish line right as you go across this final bit of, or this final right-hand kink, where also the pit exit joins the track, and you'll be looking out for the left-hand side edge of the track, where you'll find a series of, well, yeah, a series of numbers on boards, which which go down from 5 to 1, and your braking point would be at the number 3 board, but turn 1 at full speed for one. First of all, looks like this. So as I've alluded to earlier, or a little bit ago, it was the breaking point for turn 1 would be the number 3 board. That is your reference point, and pretty much as you're going past it, or basically as it starts going out of view, like right around here, that's when you start transitioning from throttle to brake. Once again, try to get most of the deceleration part done as long as you're traveling in a straight line. And as soon as you pass this final board on the left hand side, the arrow board, the 6th of the 5 boards that I've mentioned earlier, that's when you start turning in and transitioning into the trail braking phase. And you'll be looking to hook the apex curb ever so slightly. Try to avoid going onto the grass, obviously, because that will unsettle the car. Like from the outside, it's not really, it's not even really necessary to hit the curb. All the more important is that you carry good rotation and good momentum through the apex of the corner. And more importantly than that is even still that you have as tight an exit as possible. Like there's no point in washing out wide, because at the exit there's another continuous right-hander waiting for you thereafter. So try your best to still stay on the right-hand side edge of the track as you're accelerating out of turn 1. And yeah, that pretty much straight away spits you into the approach for turn 3, I think, at this point, but this upcoming double left-hander, which at full speed looks like this. So as you've exited turn 1, as I've said earlier, you want to exit on the far right-hand side of the track as much as you can. And coming up on this double left-hander, you'll be looking to more or less stay on the middle part of the track. And your reference point, as far as the braking point goes, would be right around the middle part, like right at the center of this left-hand side curb on the first apex of the corner, like right around here. That's when you start transitioning from throttle to brake. Obviously, you're turning and rotating the car all the way through, so try your best to. You'll see me transition off the throttle ever so slightly just before I start to brake, because that sort of transfers the weight of the car towards the front axle all the more smoothly and allows me to. It gives me just a little bit more freedom on the brakes and also when manipulating the car when going through turn 4. And you'll be shifting down 1 gear and you'll at most run out to like two-thirds of the track width to the right, more or less, or maybe 3/4 of the track width to the right. That's the most amount of track you will use all the way through turns 2 and 3, or the double left-hander anyway. And yeah, you can hook this or you'll try your best to hook this inside curb on the second apex of the corner, and thereafter be careful not to run out too wide, because there's a transition from tarmac to curb to astroturf thereafter, which if you hit it at too much of an angle towards the right, it will cause you to wash out wide even more and force you to basically lift off the throttle once again, which undoes all the good work you've done beforehand. So try your best to feed the throttle in smoothly, and once the car is completely straight, or once the car is more or less straight enough that it can take 100% throttle, that's when you increase your throttle input to 100%. Like you'll see me go to give it that last kick right around here, because the car beforehand would have been a bit too unsettled and would have caused too much understeer for me to run out wide and then lose time that way. And yeah, this upcoming sequence of corners is just one continuous sequence of corners, so I'm just gonna play the whole thing at full speed. So as you've just seen, it is a pretty complicated and pretty tricky section to get right. But starting with the first 90-degree left-hander that leads into this whole thing, your braking point would be more or less as the AstroTurf runs out on the right-hand side, and you try your best to, since you're coming off of an extra bit of track, it's a bit deceiving as far as realigning the car with the right-hand side edge of the track goes. So if you want to realign the car with the right-hand side, you have to leave all the more margin on the brakes, meaning that you're still trying to rotate the car while doing the hard deceleration part anyway. So try your best to leave a bit of margin there. And as far as the apex goes, you can hook this curb on the left-hand side quite aggressively. Just be mindful that if you've carried a bit too much speed or any sort of rear locking or any sort of oversteer through this braking zone, your whole work through the whole section thereafter will become undone. So try your best to slow down the car efficiently for this first left-hander, because that opens up a whole set of opportunities when going through the exit or going through the section that follows thereafter. So, as I've said, you can use this curb quite aggressively. Try to stay more or less in the middle part of the track, because thereafter follows a pretty sharp right-hander, which you'll be taking with about, all the way through here. It's all about throttle modulation. You'll see me lift off the throttle ever so briefly for, go down to 0% ever so briefly, because I want to hook the car over this right-hand curve, because this one, it is a bit more aggressive than the first one we've just gone through, but it is still pretty usable, I would say. And thereafter, you start feeding the throttle back in and run out wide towards the right-hand edge of the track, Be mindful here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but this curb right here, this part, like right up until the rippling part starts, is cambered towards the inside, but as soon as you go over the rippling part, it's cambered towards the outside. So at most you want to use this part that is cambered towards the inside. From the outside it would look somewhat like this. Like, I'm barely using the curb here because, as I've said, this rippling part, or this rippled part, sort of drops off towards the outside. So once the tire hooks on the rippled part, it will just drag you off towards the grass and will go. It's not unsavable, I would say, but it will certainly cost you a lot of lap time if you run out too wide onto this curb. And yeah, it's all the way through, you feed the throttle in, and same goes for the part thereafter. Like, there's this upcoming right-hander, which is all about throttle modulation. All you're trying to do here is not apply too much throttle, not to cause any sort of understeer and not any sort of oversteer. I would say even understeer here is it is a lot easier to manage, because it gives you quite a predictable rear end, and if your rear end is way too oversteery, that it will make this corner all the more tricky. So this week's setup is also a bit more understeer for that reason. So as I said, you want to feed the throttle in, catch this curb on the right hand side, and that's basically as soon as you feel like you can mash the throttle pedal through here, it is pretty easily doable. This is lap 4 of the stint, so every lap that you do more on this track, or every lap that goes by in the stint, it will become easier and easier to handle, easier to manage, and easier to carry the speed through this section. But be mindful that also here you don't want to really risk dipping a wheel into the grass, because as you can see here, once again, the curb is cambered towards the inside and the grass is cambered towards the, well, basically away from the corner. So catching a wheel here will most likely cause the car to bottom out here. So yeah, be mindful of that, because that loses you a lot of momentum. But other than that, you can use these curbs quite, I would say, quite, without really having to think about it. You can use it obviously to create some extra space and to straight line this whole section for the exit. And yeah, thereafter follows a pretty straightforward series of kinks, which are all taken full throttle. This one's full throttle. You can use the curbs here, as you've done beforehand, to straight line most of the section in order to save some distance. And here, coming up here, is a pretty tricky left-hand kink, which is all about timing and seeing and nailing the apex and nailing the braking. But most importantly, it's about timing. At full speed, looks like this. So this is a pretty it doesn't really look like that much of a challenge, but it is a bit harder than meets the eye, I would say. So as far as the braking goes, you can see the patch of tarmac here going a bit darker. And I would brake about 5 to 10 meters before that even, because as you can see, the track sort of from going or it goes from an incline to a drop, and then it sort of straightens out thereafter. So you want to prepare the car for the deceleration part when you're about to go into the drop part, because as soon as you hit the part where the drop stops and it starts going into an incline again, that's when you will have a lot of grip available. And at that point, I would recommend having the most brake input at that point as well. And but it is a pretty sharp and brief brake input because it is a pretty high speed corner, so you don't really need to take that much speed out of it. And as far as the timing goes, you should aim to basically be all over this curb with your left hand side, because the wider you run out here, the more understeer you will create, because offline there's a lot less grip the more you go offline. So it is all about being all over this curb with your left hand side. Like you can take this curb pretty much no issue. Just be mindful that you will eventually run into an off track, obviously, because if your middle part of the car is touching the grass here, which obviously means that you've taken a lot of curb, or you've turned in a little bit too early maybe, that's when you will get an off track. But here, all with your left hand side wheels on this curb all the way over, it is pretty safe. So I would aim to be all over this curve, as I've said. And on the exit, as far as the exit goes, it sort of goes into a drop once again, which means that there will be a bit reduced front grip available as well, because because the front starts going light because you're about to go into the drop. And yeah, which is also why you want to make the most, or make use of the space available as much as you can, because that sort of opens up opportunities on the exit as well, and so it gives you a lot more breathing space. Because going through here, there's been a lot of times where you just start running out wide and you want to desperately carry it all the way through with full throttle still, but there's just no way, because at that point the front of the car has already decided that it's not going to stick. So yeah, you can help that by being all over this curb on this apex right here. And yeah, pretty much straight thereafter follows a double right-hander, which yeah, is this whole section is a lot of fun because it's a bit of a roller coaster feeling. Either way, at full speed, the upcoming section looks like this. So as you've exited this left-hand kink right here, which is a really high speed, you obviously want to brake the car as much as you can back over towards the left-hand side, because it's a right-hander coming up, in order to make the most use of the track. But as you can see, even from the dark patch here, there is no way you can bring the car all the way back to the left-hand side before hopping onto the brakes, which is why you want to leave your braking earlier than maybe would meet the eye. Even with the incline, which helps you decelerate the car, obviously, you should pick quite an early braking point, because you're still wanting to manipulate the car. You're still turning it to the right all the way through the braking zone, basically. So yeah, your braking point would be right around the foreboard, right on the right here on the left hand side. And as I've said, you want to realign the car as much as you can with the left hand side in order to make use of the track available. And all this time you're decelerating, and as you can see here as well, the incline sort of stops right around the one board. So by the time you're about to go past the one board, you should reduce your brake input by quite a bit, because if you keep the same brake pressure on whilst turning the car, and there's less grip available because the incline has gone to because the incline starts to even out, which sort of takes away some of the deceleration. That means that most likely we'll end up with a lockup here. So right around the time you're going past the one board, you should be well into the trail braking phase here, which means just minimal brake input in order to just slightly decelerate the car, but more importantly, to rotate the car into the corner. Try and not really be all over the curb on the right hand side. Like you can just ever so slightly graze the gray part of the curb, because being too far to the inside of this corner or of the first apex means that your line for the second apex will not be ideal, which is basically what it's all about, because thereafter follows the longest straight on the track. And yeah, try and run out wide towards the left hand side, but not all the way out here towards the dark patches here, because the wider you run out here, the more chance you have of a lockup once again, and tipping a wheel onto the curb, running out of grip, and just being straight off into the tire wall. So I leave about half a car width of margin towards the left hand side, and all this time you're still decelerating. Try and just ever so slightly clip the curb on the right hand side, like not be all over it, because it's a pretty aggressive curb, which in itself is not really the issue, but since you're trying to feed the throttle in, it will most likely cause some sort of understeer, just some sort of unsettling of the car. So try to just ever so slightly graze the curb on the inside if you can help it on the green and yellow part, not the gray part. Like, you can take a bit of the green and yellow part, but not be all over it with about half your car. Try and graze it ever so slightly in order to have a smooth exit still. Yeah, feed the throttle back in, and there is a bit of extra space here on the outside as well, which yeah, it's pretty important here that you don't carry any sort of oversteer onto this transition from tarmac to curb to AstroTurf, because between the curb and the AstroTurf there's a bit of a drop once again, and if you're carrying some sort of oversteer, it will hook the car and it will most likely lose you a lot of momentum going down this long straight. So try and feed the throttle in here. Try and feed the throttle back into the car really smoothly through this exit, because yeah, as I've said, this transition here, it can be a bit violent, which will most likely cause you to lose momentum. Yeah, and thereafter follows a pretty calm sort of section, because it's basically the longest straight on the track. You're trying to basically realign the car with the right hand side immediately to save as much distance as possible. And coming up here is a pretty tricky braking zone, I would say. It's a left hand kink, or it's hard stop onto the brakes, left hand kink, right hand kink, and which at full speed looks like this. So as you can see here, you're not sort of numbered boards here on the right hand side, which will give you a good indication of where to brake. As far as your braking point goes, you should be on the brakes, or you should be transitioning onto the brakes as soon as the 2 board starts going out of view, and be fully aligned with the right hand side. But yeah, as I've alluded to earlier, you want to get a big stop out of the way right away, basically. But the moment you start turning the car in order to make the left hand kink beforehand, you should feed off the brakes once again, because you're turning the car, and being fully committed on the brakes will most likely cause a lockup. You can use this curb on the left hand side. Just be mindful that when going off of the curb, there's a slight chance of a lockup still, so the better you're modulating the brakes here, the less chance there is of a lockup when going over the curb. Yeah, and once again, once you're straight lining the wheel, you can start feeding the brake in more aggressively once again, but it will only be for a brief moment, because pretty soon thereafter follows the right hand corner, which is actually the corner you're slowing down for properly. And you can use this curb on the right hand side in order to open up the corner quite well, I would say. But yeah, be mindful that here, through the exit here, it has become a lot more tricky to feed throttle in with the reduced grip on the GTP. Sometimes, or even on the outlap and first or second lap, you will find yourself not being able to go full throttle all the way past this this gray curb on the left hand side here. Like this would be the first time you would be full throttle sometimes on lap 1 or 2 on the stint, but yeah, this is lap 4 of the stint, so you should be able to feed the throttle in quite aggressively, because the car can take it at that point. And yeah, also one important thing here is that you don't really want to be carrying too much speed into this right hand corner, because every little bit you gain, perhaps under braking here, you will lose, and then some under acceleration, because of the way, if you've done it correctly and slowed the car down to a point where you can basically straight line the exit as much as possible, that's where you will gain the time. Like, the moment you can straight line the exit here, that's when the delta will go green massively, and you can just gain a lot of time by doing that, instead of carrying too much speed into the corner beforehand. And yeah, as far as the exit goes, you obviously trying to run out wide towards the right hand side, because coming up now is a pretty fun little corner, but also a bit of a tricky one, which at full speed looks like this. So coming out of the previous left-hand kink, you want to run out wide towards the right-hand side, because that's where you should end up, because you want to make use of the track that's available. And as far as the braking point goes, you should be transitioning onto the brakes the moment you're about, yeah, I would say, as you can see here as well, I'm sort of slightly bleeding off the throttle once again in order to transition some of the weight forward and not overstress the tires already before I've even gone onto the brakes. And as you can see here, I'm taking quite a bit of liberties with the left hand side. You can take a bit of grass, or you can get away with a bit of grass here. And once again, the middle part of your car is your reference point as far as the off track or as far as the incident point goes, as long as it's still touching the curb somewhat, or it's still not dipping into the grass, that's when you're still fine, and it will not invalidate your lap. And as far as the braking goes, as far as the braking goes, which is what I actually wanted to say, you're basically transitioning onto the brakes the moment the moment you're passing the start of the curb on the left hand side. But once again, ever so slightly, because yeah, as you can see here, I'm basically slightly in midair. I'm jumping all over the place. I'm turning the car left and right. So the braking here starts out pretty smoothly, but it sort of starts increasing once again the moment the car is traveling in a straight line, ever so briefly, which is right around here. And you can also take a bit of liberties with the right hand side curb here. Like you can basically place the whole right hand side right up until the edge of the grass on this curb right here, which will obviously open up the corner here. And also it will, as you can see, there's a lot of incline changes and camber changes and everything. So hooking this curb on the right hand side has a pretty good grip, and it will help you hook the car towards the right hand side, because you will need the car to be pointed towards the right pretty soon thereafter, because it is quite deceiving how quickly you will run out of grip on under acceleration here. So you can see me feed the throttle here, or feed the throttle in pretty smoothly, and I'm still not sure whether I can go full throttle. Still not sure. And right around here, that's the first time I'm on 100%, because yeah, the grip here, it is all the better the further to the right you are, but the further you go to the left, that's when the grip starts running out, and also the angle of the corner will basically force you to be on this curb with the left hand side, and sometimes even beyond. So you want to ever so slightly graze this curb, because same as one of the curbs we've gone through previously, I'm not sure, it is cambered towards the inside up until the rippling part, or up until the ripple part, and as soon as the tire starts grabbing the ripple part, that's when the curb starts dropping away from the track, and it will basically force the car off the track and into the grass here. So you want to just ever so slightly graze the curb, if at all, when going through the exit of this final corner. And yeah, all that's left to do is get your upshifts right, feed the car back towards the right hand side, and going over the start finish line. And yeah, that is one lap of the Virginia International Raceway. So that was one lap of the Virginia International Raceway. I hope I could give you some tips here and there to help you with your pace and your consistency, and I'll see you guys next week.